Hi, everyone. I'm so delighted on this episode to be talking with the creative team of Wendy and Richard Pini. They are best known for ElfQuest, of course, and they also have a legitimate library, unlike mine, which is a faux sort of background here. What you're seeing is the actual library and real life books. So many thanks to you both for joining today.
Well, thank you for sending the invitation, and we're happy to be here.
Oh, well, so happy to have you. And we may have some barking because we both have dogs on our sides of the screen, but that totally works. That totally works. Of many creators that I've had on the show, lots of them have pointed to ElfQuest as an impetus, as a sparking point for them. And so, first of all, just let me acknowledge that you've created this wonderful world that has inspired so many to read and to keep creating themselves.
When we hear from fans, and we have throughout ElfQuest's long existence, when we hear from fans that they were inspired to do their own comics or write their own novel or in a completely different direction, they found out who they were,
Mm.
their identity they discovered through reading ElfQuest, and it caused them to do some self-searching and to feel more at home in the world. When we hear things like this, we just look at each other and feel that everything that we've done has been worth it,
Mm.
and we think about our legacy, in times to come. There, ElfQuest will, thanks to Richard, always be in print in some form.
Mhm, mhm.
And that's really important to us because it's something that's going to live past us, and more people are going to see it and possibly get inspired. So there will be more art in the world
Mhm.
because of ElfQuest. All of that is wonderful to know.
There's another aspect to it as well, which is pure. There's a term in fandom called ego boo, which is short for ego boosting.
Mhm.
Uh, and we might be at a convention, we might have a booth or a table, and people will come up to us who are in the business of entertainment or comics. They might be in animation, they might be in television, they might be
Yeah.
this or they might be that. And they say, I am where I am today because of ElfQuest.
Mhm. Mhm.
I am animating this series or that series, or I am directing this show or that show.
Who is the actor that very recently was interviewed in Variety?
Oh, the new Fantastic Four
Yeah.
film.
Uh-huh.
His name is Eben Moss. I'm glitching on it. He's going to play the Thing,
Yes.
uh,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but he name checked ElfQuest in an interview with Hollywood Reporter or Variety or one of those, and we were just blown away because we do our thing here in the wilds of upstate New York, and we love doing it. And and then these little Valentines come out of nowhere. Uh,
Mm. Mhm.
and I'll tell you, that never ever gets old.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, to have contributed to the creative universe in that way, your legacy definitely lives on. And of course, the two of you know each other well and collaborate together. And so some of the questions are geared that way. Maybe we can start with sort of the creative secret. You were saying that you have your own separate spaces, but then you also have some spaces where you create together.
Well, we have a phrase that we've always used, which is it's not a good idea to live in each other's sweat. And so, do you want to take it from there?
Well, we have been together for well over 50 years, you know,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Between, first meeting and then getting married and working together. Um, and Wendy is the allspark of ElfQuest. She had the kernel, the seed of the idea, and told me about it. And we began to work together, and we started in a little one-bedroom apartment. Well, actually, it had to be two-bedroom because one was the bedroom and one was the office and combined studio. Then we moved to a house where we had two separate rooms, studio and office. Then we rented office and studio space to get the elves out of our house because we work with them. We don't necessarily always like to live with them.
Yeah.
And then in the mid 1990s, Hollywood came calling. So Wendy moved and we got space for her out on the West Coast in Los Angeles. So now we were like continent-wide bi-coastal. And then when COVID and California started burning up and all of that, we decided, this is not a way to live for the rest of our lives. So Wendy came back east. But we discovered that being able to work together very closely, very sometimes intensely, is good. But it's also really good to be able to go back to your own corners in the boxing ring from time to time, take a breath, think about things, sometimes let things cool off.
It's really nice. We now have a living arrangement, a wonderful house where I have my studio upstairs, and he's converted almost the entire basement into his office and storage, and I also have a workshop down here for costumes and paintings and things like that. I do all my digital work upstairs. And we communicate by walkie-talkie. So we don't have to be running up and downstairs all the time. And it's just been kind of delightful to finally settle in a home that we know is going to be our forever home. And that it's an arrangement that just absolutely works for us.
It really is helpful for the creative process. Because being able to bounce ideas off of each other and then take a breath and then do some more bouncing. We have often found that she'll have an idea for a particular scenario or bit of business, and I'll have differing thoughts on the same bit of business. And she likes hers and I like mine, and we'll go at it and we'll take a break. And more often than not, we discover by putting some separation into the creative process, we come upon a third option that's better than either of the two. And as far back as ElfQuest goes, I can recall us doing that in one way or another.
I know, and as recently as our most recent story session, which happened maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we found that third option.
That's true.
And so yes, he and I still have story sessions, and we're still planning on more story to come. But lately, our lives have really been about managing existing material and updating some of it. Again, this is all for the legacy of ElfQuest, so that we're hoping to introduce a whole new generation of readers to ElfQuest, and we're doing a variety of projects right now that will help ensure that.
And some of them are directly involved with the making of comics, and some of them are quite indirect. There's one in particular that we're both very excited about, and the concept of legacy features huge in it. And I can't tell you.
Not yet. Not yet.
We're hoping, expecting, fingers crossed, to be able to make an announcement about this by the fall of this year.
Wonderful.
So, I mean, this is happening at the end of July. So really, it may not be more than a couple or 3 months.
Yeah,
It's possibly the biggest non-directly publication thing we've ever gotten ourselves involved in.
yeah.
So really kind of excited and like, I want to tell.
Well,
We can't.
this is not an announcement about the TV series, which is in development. This
Hmm.
is talking about something else. So we have these big things waiting
Yeah.
in the wings, you know.
Yeah.
It isn't hurting kittens, it's more like hurting elephants at this point.
Who are very, very like irritated and nervous elephants and not docile at all, very active elephants.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that speaks to your business sense. That speaks to your ability to keep things under wraps, and very exciting. Very exciting. Looking
Thank
forward
you.
I'll
to some
tell you,
announcements.
we are really, really good at keeping things under wraps. The Final Quest, which finished up in 2018,
Hmm.
kept that storyline under wraps for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
We had it planned 20 years prior to the final release.
If
So,
and if slash when you read Final Quest, you're going to see bits of business or scenes that call back to comics that we did 20 or more years
oh yeah,
ago.
we
Love
planted
it.
clues all the
Yes,
way through.
there are clues in 20 and 25-year-old comics that point forward to Final Quest because, again, in tribute to Wendy's sense of storytelling and structure,
Hmm.
uh, we knew that ElfQuest long term had a beginning and a big middle, but a definite end. And so we were able to, hint at things in the middle that we knew had to happen at the end. And now we get readers saying, you did that 20 years ago? Oh, you sneaky.
We we like to we have something that we often use in interviews is to talk about the backbone of the story. The
Hmm.
reason ElfQuest we were able to keep it going for 45 years and will keep it going beyond that is because the backbone of the story from the beginning of the classic quest to the end of Final Quest was the hero's journey.
Hmm.
It was Cutter's life, and everything that happened around him made up the story. And so we could take side trips and we could explore the adventures of other characters, and we could develop other sub storylines. And that was all part of the fun of telling the story. But we always had the backbone of the story to go back to, which was the classic hero's journey. And it was always our intention to take the readers all the way through Cutter's life.
Love that. Love that planning. And I was going to ask about rules and sort of guidelines that you have for writing and creating. So it sounds like beginning with the end in mind is certainly part of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, as we have said, you're in New York, you got to get to Los Angeles, so you know what the overall trip is going to be. But that doesn't stop you from making side trips and
Hmm. Hmm.
checking out the Devil's Tower in Wyoming or Meteor Crater in Arizona and or anything else. Plus, a completed hero's journey is going to have echoes that resonate
Hmm.
backward and forward
That's
in
so true.
time. So it's going to have effects on other stories and other characters. And those characters deserve screen time or print time or whatever
Hmm.
as much as Cutter. So those are things we're also very aware of and working on.
Love that. Love it. Um, you mentioned the hero's journey, so curious about the inspirations of mythology, some of the classic storytelling elements, any particular ingredients there that you'd like to mention?
Well, I grew up loving myths, legends, and fairy tales, and my grandmother, fortunately, who had been a school teacher, had a pretty large library that included many classic fairy tale books and The Legend of Robin Hood, adventure
Mm,
books as well.
King Arthur.
King Arthur. So I grew up reading those things and sort of incorporating the power of them into my mind and heart. And even from a very early age, I was always attracted to gravitas. I loved stories that had a very dense, heavy, sometimes even grim
mhm.
journey to go through. I never wanted to be a Disney princess. I always wanted to be Maleficent, you
Love
see.
it, love it.
So I definitely had a dark side from a very early age. And so I was attracted to the grandeur of ancient myths and legends. And then I discovered Asian mythology, which was a tremendous influence on me. The first one was the Ramayana,
Mhm,
uh, and especially the story of Hanuman the Monkey King. And so I became very interested in ancient East Indian mythology and also Japanese mythology, myths and legends and heroes. Um, and I kind of devoured it.
Yeah.
And by my mid-teens, I was really starting to write my own stories, create my own characters, and invent my own worlds. And was inspired by writers like Michael Moorcock, who also certainly had a dark side.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
and so this carried me on. And then Richard and I met in 1969, and I just sort of dumped all of it in his lap, let him know what he was getting right away.
Well,
And
yeah.
you weren't scared.
No, not outwardly. Uh, it was quite a feast to come into, uh, because when we first met, she let on that she was an artist and interested in comics as I was, which is how we met. Uh,
Mhm,
but then the more I got to know her, the more I realized that her interests and influences were much wider and deeper than
Mhm.
just the latest issue of the Fantastic Four or the Avengers,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
which at that time had a mythic quality about them as well. Um, but yes, I learned over time that she had a backlog of stories that she had done herself over the years, all of which kind of eventually funneled into the creation of
Oh
ElfQuest.
yeah.
All of the stories that she created in her teens and early 20s um, have a common sensibility or a common theme. They are all about characters finding either their identity or finding others of their own kind, finding tribe, finding
Yeah.
family, which is certainly the nugget of what ElfQuest is about.
Yeah, that's a major life theme for me. I've never been interested in duality. I've never been interested in good versus evil or which hero is stronger and can beat up the other guy. That just, even when I was interested in comics like the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, that's not what they were about to me. The fights
mhm,
were incidental. I
mhm,
liked the family interaction of those characters and the personality dynamics. And I learned so much about developing a group of characters and how the different personalities play off the leader personality. There was in these comics, there was always one who was the leader. Captain America was the leader of the Avengers, and Reed Richards was the leader of the Fantastic Four. And
mhm,
so it didn't matter to me that they were men, they were, I just looked at them as leaders, and they could have been women for all I cared. Uh, it's just the idea that you have a family group and you have a main character whose hero's journey that group kind of all revolves around. And that's kind of a formula I've worked from ever since.
Love that. And you have the anchors of the characters, which when there are conflicts, when there are fights, it means that they make that much more sense.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
What family doesn't have its little ups and downs?
True enough, true enough. So you mentioned big things on the way and herding elephants and things like that. So I'm curious about anything that you want to share about what you envision next, but also what you envision next in comics, since it's an always evolving medium, and we've seen Kickstarters, independent comics in the past few years. Anything that you'd like to mention about that?
Well, I think the Kickstarters and the independent comics is the new lifeblood of the comics industry, and I think that's the direction it's going.
It's funny that you mentioned that because within the last literally day or two, I had a communication from someone asking us, why don't you put out a book? Why don't you write a book about your experiences in the comics business, how you did what? And this has come up from time to time. And it's an interesting idea from a kind of historical perspective. But from a practical perspective, and let me just jump back. From a historical perspective, boy, do we have stories to tell.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
But from a practical perspective, we get asked fairly frequently, how did you do what you did? How did you accomplish what you did? And the subtext to that question is, how can I do what you did? And it's a little frustrating to me because I've worn many hats over the years, a little bit of a co-creator, editor, publisher, marketer, accountant, and the business of creating and distributing and getting comics out there has changed so
radically,
massively and radically from when we started. In 1978, the direct market had barely begun. The field was wide open for what we'll call independent comics. They didn't even have a name for it back then.
And we caught lightning in a bottle with ElfQuest.
Well,
it just
you're responsible for that because the attractiveness of the story and the artwork is what got a lot of people interested. But the fact that aside from Marvel, DC, and Archie, there was nothing competing for shelf space in a comic shop. You had ElfQuest, you had Cerebus, you had First Kingdom and Star Reach and a couple of others. ElfQuest exploded like the Big Bang. Nature abhors a vacuum. ElfQuest, boom, and filled that vacuum. Our sales were incredible. Today, because of technology, because of social media, because of Kickstarter, crowdfunding, anybody has a shot at creating their own work and making a splash. The thing that is missing from those early days is the emptiness of the playing field.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Now,
the competition is monumental. I mean, imagine trying to get something started. You have to know the business. You have to do your homework before you can even launch a Kickstarter. Nowadays, you have to know what you're getting into.
There are skills that you need as an entrepreneur, as a creator, as a human being. There are skills that you need to press the start button. It is a testament to the fact that there are a lot of really energetic people out there.
Mhm.
The number of Kickstarters and other GoFundMe's and Patreons and so on and so forth that exist and that are coming into existence every day.
But what's different for them is that, and why it's hard for us to give folks like them advice, is that when we started, we learned by the seat of our pants. We made it up as we went along because there were no guidelines, there were no role models for what we were trying to do. Nowadays, anyone wanting to jump right into the deep end and publish their own comic has to jump in knowing how to swim.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know,
And that is why the fact that there are as many as there are, and there are as many that do well, that make their goals, that bring their babies into the world for others to see, is a testament to the creativity and energy that must exist out there. Social media, the internet, all of that social stuff means that the field may be more fragmented than ever, in that there are tens of hundreds or maybe thousands of different players competing for your eyeballs. But the potential audience is that much larger as well. So it's heartening is what it is, to see so many people taking that shot. And 90% of them may fall by the wayside, but the 10%, there's some very good stuff out there.
And even apart from print, many people can get their properties started online, which is an entirely new field to play in. Nothing like that we ever conceived of back when we got started. People who don't want to go to print can still develop an audience online first, and then take the material that they've created and published online, and then publish it later on as a collection, if they want.
Yeah. True enough. Well, speaking of online spaces and such spaces, if I'm a listener out there and I want to learn more about you, if I want to connect with the work, where would I go to do that? Are there particular in-person spaces, online spaces that you'd like to mention?
Well, first and foremost, because I'm a little bit more old school than most, I will point to our websites. Of course, there is elfquest.com. And on elfquest.com, we have the reading room and the first 35 years of ElfQuest comics that we published or licensed to be published. Is something like 10,000 pages of ElfQuest. It's there. You can read it on your screen for free. Because my philosophy has always been, I'd rather get a new reader than another dollar, because that new reader is going to spread the word, and the dollar I'm going to spend on, 20% of a coffee these days.
True enough.
So there's the elfquest.com website. Something totally separate from ElfQuest, but worthy of mention, is Wendy has another big project in the work, her adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's Masque of the Red Death.
Yes.
From 3-page short story into 400-page nascent graphic novel, plus development as a musical thriller. The website is Mask Musical, one word, maskmusical.com. You go there and you navigate the different buttons, you're going to see some very, very different stuff. Moving away from websites, we have presence.
Well, I want to jump in and mention the ElfQuest audio. We call it the audio movie, but it's a 10-episode I guess you could say podcast, that you can access wherever you access podcasts. There are so many outlets right now. And it's a fabulous performance. It's far more than just a reading of a script. It's got beautiful musical score, sound effects. It's like listening to the soundtrack of a big epic movie.
Mm.
And you can access that via the ElfQuest website.
Yes.
But you mentioned social spaces. We have presence on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter/X/what'll it be next week, and several more that I can't keep track of because that's just not where my brain is good at. We do have a wonderful helper by the name of David Charles Mizajewski, who handles social media for us. But if you put ElfQuest into the search field of your search engine, whether it's Google or whatever, you're going to come up with a whole lot of hits as to where to find us and what we have done now and over the years.
And there are many people doing some wonderful podcasts about ElfQuest. That will also pop up when you search. They're just great. They are in-depth analysis of storylines, chapter by chapter, and just we learned stuff when we listened to these things that we didn't even realize.
There are some fans out there who know more about the fine-grained detail of characters and places and names in ElfQuest than maybe we ever did.
Oh, I know. When I'm working on something new and I've forgotten something, I'll call our guy David and say, "Hey, what happened in issue so and so with this character?"
I love it.
You know,
This is
and he comes up with the answer like that. Well, he's a Virgo. Virgo.
see up here is the hard drive.
Yeah.
And every so often you have to defrag the hard drive and you have to like move the extraneous stuff to an external drive. And because we could not continue to move forward carrying every detail of the past.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
there she
baby,
goes.
she agreed.
Exactly.
So it's really good that there are fans out there who are making lists and who are making podcasts and who are analyzing and dissecting and all of that stuff. It frees us up to just simply create. And that's what we love most to do.
I love that interaction with the fan community as well. How many thousand pages did you say?
It's something on the order of 10,000 pages.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
over almost 50 years, either, Wendy wrote and drew, or other very creative people that we work with provided stories and artwork for. So it's a big chunk of catching up if you're of a mind to do so. And
they can on elfquest.com.
Yeah, it's there. I put all that stuff up there in 2008, 9, 10.
What he means by all that stuff is he scanned every
Yeah.
single page of a huge amount of the comics.
Because as Wendy alluded to at the very beginning of this, we are always on the lookout for introducing ElfQuest to new readers. That is a bigger challenge today than it ever has been because heavens, look at all of the YA material in both prose and graphic novel form that is available. And a lot of it is wonderful. ElfQuest is wonderful. There's so much wonderful stuff out there. Look at all the YA material that exists in prose and graphic novel form for new, younger readers to find. And ElfQuest is part of that.
Well,
We just want to
yeah,
make sure
yeah.
that we have shelf space alongside. That means keeping things in print, which we are doing with our publisher, Dark Horse Comics. They're doing a wonderful job, and we have some new projects coming up with them.
Mhm.
Uh, it just means keeping the word out there, keeping the face of ElfQuest visible. And that's something we're going to be involved in for the rest of our, able lives.
For those who are listening to this who have just never experienced ElfQuest before, it is not really appropriate for children under 8 years old, I would say. ElfQuest
Mhm.
has some mature content, done very, very tastefully. So, 10 years old and up is better. And at whatever age you discover it, even as an adult, you'll find something new that you didn't get when you were a child.
See, 10, 11, 12, 13 is that age when little human beings are becoming bigger human beings,
Mhm.
and they are learning things about themselves. They are asking questions about themselves. And a lot of, I won't say answers, because we never set out to preach,
Mhm.
but a lot of things possibly to think about or pursue or to explore exist in ElfQuest that so many of our readers said, you, ElfQuest, helped me discover who I am.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that today more than ever before is a theme or a rallying cry or whatever you want to call it of people searching for identity in a crazy world.
And more than ever nowadays, I think the internet has been a tremendous boon, but as we all know, it's done tremendous harm in terms of people's identities and who they identify as being, and the criticism and harshness of the world that they have to face every time they log on to the internet. And so it's a boon and a bane. And
Mhm.
if we have a story that they can turn to that helps them cope, then every reason to keep it out there more than ever.
Absolutely, and that speaks to the ethos, the power storytelling. It's fun, it's adventure, but then it's also a human connection. So,
Yes.
yeah,
And
wonderful.
and that is the biggest part of it is the connecting. We were talking earlier, sometimes we're at a show, fans come up and said, you helped me,
Mhm.
or in some instances, you saved my life, which is wow,
That's a big one.
Yeah,
that's a big
yeah.
one. And we've done that simply by telling as honest a story as we know how to tell, as two people trying to make our own way in a crazy world. Um, we get letters, we get communications. Why don't you do this? Why don't you hook up this character with that character? Why don't you, this, that, and the other thing? Um,
Because that's another thing about what it's like today is that fans have more access to creators nowadays because of the internet than
Hmm.
ever before. And so some of them feel like they have a little bit more power to influence the material they want to see.
and you can see that in a lot of what's coming out of Hollywood these days, and a lot of what's coming out in mainstream comics these days. But we're just stubborn that way. We have a way of thinking, we have a way of looking at life, and we have a way of telling stories that we believe is honest and truthful. And as Wendy has often said, the best fantasies are the ones that speak to real truths. That's what ElfQuest is going to continue to be,
Mm,
Love it.
as best we can do it.
mhm.
And, knock wood, we're going to be doing it for a while.
Love it. Love it. Love that idea of staying true to the story and the characters and doing what they would do, what they are telling you to do as you're writing and creating.
Well, it's no secret that ElfQuest has been to the altar of Hollywood several times. There have been a number of options, and none of them have panned out. And again, it's no secret that there is a series in development now that looks like it actually has a shot. But we have gone on the record as saying we would rather have no movie or no series than a bad movie or bad series.
Mhm.
The integrity of what ElfQuest is paramount and has always been, will always be. We're not averse to making a few dollars here and there if a good idea for a license comes along.
Mhm.
But the integrity of what Wendy thought up and what we have shepherded for all of these years. And it's a little scary because in 4 years, it's going to be ElfQuest's golden anniversary.
50
That's
years.
right.
Wow. But the integrity has to stay.
I'm sure you can tell from the tone of this whole interview that far more than me, Richard is kind of the voice of ElfQuest. He is very, very quick to give me credit, and I really appreciate that. But I often think that there should be more credit given to him, as he has been the business manager, the elephant herder, working with the other talent that we've worked with, coordinating all of that, keeping the business going during the ups and downs of the industry. Um, he's the one who takes the really hard meetings
Mhm.
and has to deal with a lot of the red tape that I haven't had to deal with, because he likes to leave me room to come up with the stories and the art, and he wants to make that path easier for me. He always has. And I just wanted to take a moment to give him credit for all that. And this goes back to the very first question about
Mhm.
working together.
Mhm.
We each have what we do best. And one of the things that Richard does best when we do an interview is that he is quick with the answers about where to access ElfQuest, where to find out about it, what it's about, what the integrity of ElfQuest is, because this is kind of what he has lived for all these years, going on to our golden anniversary.
Yeah.
We each have our skills, and luckily, they dovetail very well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so, uh, like Chris Claremont used to say of the Wolverine, he's the best there is at what he does.
Mhm.
He's the
Mhm.
best there is at what she does. I'm the best there is at what I do. And obviously it works because it started working 46 years ago. It's still working, and good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise.
Knock wood.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's going to continue.
Love it, love it. Well, that's the motto of a good quest, and it sounds like it's been a wonderful quest. Thank you so much for taking the time. Did we miss anything in the talk that you want to make sure to share before we close? I know you've done a few of these, so I just want to make sure that we
Yeah,
didn't miss
I, th-
anything.
I think there are people who would find it interesting to know that ElfQuest is considered the first American manga. I
Love it.
was among the very first independent comic artists to be influenced by Japanese anime and manga, which was very hard to obtain back in the late 60s. It was very catch as catch can, but what I could find, I absolutely devoured, and it really informed my not only my drawing style and my approach to designing characters, but also as to how to tell a story. Because the interesting thing about manga is that they don't do massive reboots every 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
the way we
Mm-hmm.
do it here in the West. The stories are epic length and constantly evolving, and often they come to an end and resolve the storyline. Whereas here in America, we just have this thing about let's keep it going, especially with superhero comics.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's because Superman and Spider-Man are corporately owned, and you have to keep the franchise alive. Um, Wendy was not quite accurate a moment ago. Um, when she said the first independent comics creator to be influenced by I would say the first comics creator, period, artist to be influenced by manga, because in the early 60s, what did you have? You had Jack Kirby in terms
Mm-hmm.
of art.
Mm-hmm.
You had Jack Kirby doing the Fantastic Four and the Avengers and all of that. In the East, you had Osamu Tezuka doing his manga.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy got hold of examples of that. She was already an aficionado of Western art styles. She combined, used a DNA artistic CRISPR to graft onto each other both Eastern and Western artistic conventions. So ElfQuest is unique, in my opinion, in the world, in that it combines the lightness and ethereality of manga
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
the power and the weight of Kirby-esque Western artistic storytelling, which is why ElfQuest has this wonderfully eerie combination of both, especially in the characters.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are appealing on a manga anime level, and Wendy puts them through hell on a Kirby-esque dark side apocalypse level.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, unique in comics
Yeah.
of all stripes.
Yeah. Yeah. Love the artistic DNA. Absolutely. And unique story that's been going on for some time and may it continue. May the journey continue into many stories to come across media and in print. And I want to say thank you both for the time, the wonderful conversation, the lineage that we've talked about, and glad to share about your work anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. We would love to come back and talk about anything that you would like to talk to us about.
Sounds
Absolutely.
wonderful. Sounds wonderful. We will plan on it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.